Hello. Good day, our billions of audience members. That's right, you heard me correct. Oh my goodness, though. God, I'm so sad today. You know why?
Why?
I just finished watching The Last of Us. And what a cheery little number that was. Holy cow, it's such an emotional roller coaster. Even more of an emotional roller coaster than hosting this show with you, Josh.
the ups and the downs of podcasting, eh?
Yeah, just the downs. There's no ups. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. And I do feel your vibes. Like, I haven't really seen a show this like down and dark since like maybe some aspects of like The Witcher. Like, and I think I like it because it's like more realistic, but then it's like you always kind of see like, oh yes, but then this is when it's going to go up again and bring you to an all-time high, but it's like, no, it's going to go down.
God. I know it does. It has like highs and lows, and I think there's some very key episodes that are just absolute emotional roller coasters. Like episode 3, with what was his name? The characters, you have that list. God, I should have done my homework on the characters.
Bill and Frank, yeah.
Bill and Frank. Wow. I mean, that episode with the soundtrack in it, what was it, on the nature of daylight? Oh, that brought me to tears, that episode. Like, something about it is, you know, when we talk about the highs of it, there's something so beautiful about the stagecraft and set design in it. Like, for example, the giraffe scene at the end is obviously a crowd pleaser, which was also in the game. But so in the second episode, when Ellie wakes up and Joel and what was her name?
I think Tess. Yes, Tess. Yes.
Tess, like, are quizzing her because they, you know, at the end of the first episode, they saw she was infected. And like, oh my God, why haven't you turned yet? And they'd like pointing the gun at her. The set design in that scene, it was beautiful. Like, she was on a bed of, it was in an abandoned building, the roof had caved in, but it had created like a flower bed somehow in that room. And, you know, despite all the horrible darkness of that post-apocalyptic world, there's still beauty to be had in it, which I thought really shone through, you know.
Yeah. And I think like one of the things that they do really well is like the lighting and the coloring of the TV series as well. It's like, for example, when you have that scene with the giraffe and then like you have all those buildings, it was Boston, wasn't it? Or was it Chicago that was the buildings? I'm not sure. But when they get to like the major city and you see like the fact that nature is then recouped and taken over, similar to kind of like, you know, the film with Will Smith, I Am Legend, where he's basically also fighting zombies in a post-apocalyptic world and like literally nature's taken over. But it's like the vibrance of the greens and also like the clothes on the characters, which I kind of felt like they had in the video game. And like at times, actually, like when you watch like TV shows, sometimes like they purposely like gray it down. My sister pointed this out to me like years ago. Like, for those who know CSI, CSI Miami has this like orangey yellow tinge to the lighting of the cameras, and they do it purposefully to demonstrate like how sunny Miami is. And then for like CSI New York, they make it gray because it's New York, it's the gray city with all the concrete
jungle where dreams are made up.
And like for Las Vegas, so which is the normal CSI, they basically have it that it's like the colors really stand out. So it's like, oh, the lights of Las Vegas and all that stuff. And it seems like they really used it in like The Last of Us to like bring in another element of like the colors and the color schemes of the different places and locations that really brought them to life.
Yeah, I see what they're doing there. It's like a cinematography trick.
Yeah.
Having like color schemes or color selections and very specific color selections, like variations of orange or red, because it's trying to convey something and just looks beautiful. And you know, for such depressing series and topic, they made it beautiful at moments, which is good. The light shines out against the darkness. Like, what is it? The Firefly saying their motto: "When you're lost in the darkness, find the light." So you know, I'm very impressed. I've got to admit. Let's just give a bit of background to our audience members who. Well, I mean, if you haven't played the game or seen the show, why are you watching this? I guess they're just dedicated 100% to Two Maesters, I guess. But, so essentially, the story of The Last of Us, and correct me where I'm wrong, is it's set in a post-apocalyptic world. A mass outbreak of a fungus infection generating from a fungus called Cordyceps essentially dooms humanity in a post-apocalyptic world. It follows several survivors, including Joel, who is a smuggler who lost his daughter during the outbreak, which was the first emotional roller coaster. But, you know, if you've played the game, and I've got to admit, I played a tiny bit of the game, and I played just past that point, so it wasn't too unexpected for me. And it follows Ellie, who's a young girl who's immune to the Cordyceps infection. So a lot of it feels like the Mandalorian, to be honest. Like, Pedro Pascal, same thing. A older, more versed anti-hero of sorts, guiding a younger child through some sort of universe. Yeah, basically the Mandalorian.
And it does kind of have like the feel of like God of War as well, like the two new, because it's like Kratos and his son. And it's like his relationship with his son that then ends up building up. So like you've got like the first like God of War from the remake series where he's like really distant from his son because he's never really been with his son that much, and then it's them trying to like build their relationship, and then it then expands upon it, and it's kind of like similar things. Like you then start to see things within like God of War Ragnarok, like where Loki then, which is we find out his son is actually Loki. Kratos' son is Loki. Is actually like when he kills people as well, which is kind of similar to actually The Last of Us, like when Ellie actually shoots someone and kills someone or when they've strapped her down later on in the series and she basically cuts someone's neck open, and it's like and I think to your point, it's like we really love stories, whether it's like Terminator or Terminator 2, where it's basically Sarah Connor, which needs to be saved, or in the second Terminator, where it's her son, who Arnold Schwarzenegger is saving. That we love stories.
If you want to live.
Yes. We love stories like where there's like a father-son or father-daughter or mother-son or mother-daughter, where they actually have to go through adversity and then able to then get to basically build their relationship and their bond together and actually then get to the aims that they need to get to.
Yeah, I've got to admit, it's a tried and tested thing. Like, and so many, The Mandalorian, The Road, The Last of Us.
Yeah, even like Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man, which was Homecoming, you had the relationship with that, which they played, and even like Far From Home, you had the relationship of Iron Man and Spider-Man, which they played on a bit like a father and son type relationship.
Like a little bit,
yeah, and it's like it's a tried and thing, because I think like how many people have had like difficult or kind of like relationships with their parents, and then they can actually be like, oh yeah, I remember that kind of thing happened with me, but not to that level for most people though.
Wow, bro, this is a podcast for not therapy. Okay, save that for therapists. Nah, I'm kidding. You can talk about it whenever you want, baby. But yeah, I guess you could see like people like seeing family and stuff. Star Wars based around family. You know, it's important to us, and we like seeing
even Game of Thrones like is basically families vying for power, or families surviving
and having sex
and yes
bloody diabolical.
But it didn't work out.
I didn't have to say damn, but that actually worked quite well. That was a good one.
Yes.
That was from our The Boys episode that'll be coming out soon. Well, I'll probably come out before this, so that's going to sound weird. But yeah, I mean, great original idea for a zombie outbreak. Yeah. Important trivia that you might have heard about, because when you said zombie earlier, I kind of smiled a little bit, because on the set when the cast and crew were filming and stuff, they were banned from saying the word zombie. Did you hear about that?
I did hear about it, and I think like they want to make it different, and like each of the different like universes which have zombies always want to differentiate from each other. So for those who've watched The Walking Dead, it's basically anyone who dies becomes zombified. In certain things, like for me, I played like Dead Rising on Xbox, it was like bees, that these bees would inject people or go into their bodies and then turn them into zombies. And then the bees were like the main spreaders of the actual virus. And then you've got like, is it nature? Is it science? And then you've also got, is it like mystical as well? Is it a necromancer bringing people back from the dead? And I think they just wanted to have the lane like, no, it's science. And it's not on mad science, it's based on actual things. And it's weird because...
Yeah, that's what's so frightening.
Because like when I first read it, when I first found out about this, when the first game came out, which I think it came out like 2010 or 9, like that's how old the first game is.
First game came out in 2013, but we'll get to the timeline of things very shortly.
And like the fact that I then watched on YouTube like a David Attenborough documentary, and he says that the one that's mostly used within the Last of Us universe is the one based on ants, but there are fungi for for many different insects within like the rainforest and the Amazon.
Just like cordyceps.
For beetles, for other, and I think it's also like for centipedes, which aren't insects, but for other like bugs, there are other corticoids for them. And it's basically, David Attenborough said, it's to make sure that one species does not overtake the other.
What do you mean?
So it keeps the numbers down, because if too many ants, then there would be no more rainforest, because then they would then spread all over and then cut too many things. They would eat too much and then either would then die out because there's nothing else to eat.
Oh my God.
Or would then kill off other species of insects within their region.
That is interesting. Yeah. So I guess it's thinking about food chains and ecosystems in the natural environment and food webs. It's like there could be just because there's a specific creature that we dislike or is aggressive to humans, if we killed it all off, that's going to upset imbalance everything, because there's an animal that creature eats, and because it eats that, it stops something else from overpopulating, and it all's linked together. But that's interesting hearing about the cordyceps and how that even though it sounds pretty scary after this, and I'm sure people are going to look at it negatively like sharks and black holes, but it does like have a part to play, and it's very important, and it's actually stopping the apocalypse in a way. I will say though, there have been so many news stories recently about, because of The Last of Us, I guess it brings it more into the spotlight of other types of fungus that have infected people and actually hurt them. Like I was reading 2 weeks ago about someone in India that some kind of fungus infected them and they were in hospital. Don't know whether it was fatal. I haven't really followed that story, but I guess because the cordyceps is on everyone's mind, everyone's it's happening! I told you.
Yeah.
And one great bit in the TV series is in the very first episode, it flashes back to 1963, and the doctor is talking about, so what are you afraid of? And he's like, I'm not afraid of viruses or bacteria. I'm afraid of fungus. And they all laugh and stuff, and he talks about how cordyceps, certain types of fungus could take over, and he's like, so really there's nothing to worry about because they can't infect us. But say if the world suddenly got hotter, then we lose. And I was like, he's definitely talking about climate change. This applies so much to us. He's looking at the camera when he said it, and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. And like scientists have said, the closest thing human beings can get to zombies that we see is rabies. And that especially extreme cases of rabies. And I think luckily it doesn't affect us, but then who's to say that this fungus won't evolve in the next 15,000 years to do something? But then
we'll be dead by that point, don't worry, bro.
And I think one of the things like with like zombie apocalypse shows is like, how big is the scope? Like for like the Walking Dead, or like even like Day of the Dead, is it the whole world or is it just like the United States? Because like for World War Z, they full on said the whole world is effed, and basically there's nowhere to hide unless you get that vaccine that gives you a disease that scares the zombies away, because they don't infect hosts that are going to die or have fatal illnesses.
That was interesting, but that was in the movie, right?
Yeah, in the movie, yes.
The book World War Z was very different to the movie, because I remember I read all the book, but I don't remember them finding that as like a cure, basically, to vaccinate yourself with something potentially lethal, therefore that all the zombies ignore you. But I still thought that was a cool addition in the movie. And just to say, World War Z is an amazing book. Like, give that a read. That is cool.
I'll definitely read it. Yeah, because like watching. Because then I think one thing that you have seen now is that if you go back to old films in the 90s, like if you watch Buffy and they had zombies or zombies from like the early 2000s or even the 80s, you have these slow moving zombies that aren't going anywhere fast.
You could easily outrun.
And like you're like, really, people, why aren't you just moving faster? Literally, you're falling everywhere and the zombies getting closer and closer. But like nowadays, it's like, no, full on World War Z, and also with The Last of Us, even though they're not zombies, full on high speed, not caring about anything.
It's so much more frightening, isn't it? They're less comical, these zombies. And I've got to admit that I think they did them so well. Like this whole going back to like cast and crew members not calling them zombies, they do feel different, you know. This whole fungus thing, the sort of prosthetics they use to decorate the infected, also known as zombies, but we're not allowed to say that. A couple of people I live with who work in the movie industry, decorating sets and making props and doing prosthetics, say it was spot on, like really well done. This deserves an award for the prosthetics. They look great. Like it looks horrible. I find it disgusting. I really find looking at the bloater, for example, in both the game and the TV show, disgusting. The normal infected with bloody like mushrooms coming out of one of their eyes. I'm like, bleh.
And I think the reason why they're not zombies is because the person is unfortunately still alive, and that's why the fungi can control their movement. Yeah. Because I think it basically takes over their brain and nervous system and forces them to move. Yeah. But then, because like even like with the ants documentary, like the ant then dies, and then a mushroom sprouts like out of its head, and then it then bursts. And then to infect other ants, but like they're alive when they're moving, because then if they were dead, technically the fungi wouldn't then be able to hijack the nervous system, the brain to make movements. So
they're not zombies.
So that's the main thing, because they're still alive, which is even worse. Like if you think about it, like how like the whole experience of turning into one of them is like how when does it actually click that their thoughts are no longer theirs? Is it like a few seconds, like, oh, what was I thinking about a few seconds ago? Or why is my hand over here? Or why have I started to think about this?
Face off?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could go into the philosophy of it. I'm sure in the world of The Last of Us, there's philosophers there that, like, would love to study them. You know, if I had a member of the infected in my basement, I'd definitely study them. And then I'd end up accidentally getting bitten by them, and then that'd be my downfall. Yeah. But it's fascinating stuff. I love the science behind it. It's just so much more interesting than other zombie stuff. Because other zombie stuff, it's about how you survive, like where you hold up, what building you're in, how many weapons you got. This is about that, but also the science behind it as well, which I just find fascinating. Yeah. And so to give a bit of like background, let's try and talk about the game and the TV show and just some things around that. So, as we spoke about earlier, the first game was in 2013, made by Naughty Dog and Sony Interactive Entertainment. Naughty Dog, I've heard, come around quite a few times. Didn't they do the Resistance games on PlayStation, or was that someone else?
I believe it is them. Let me just double check. I believe it is Naughty Dog who does that.
Either that or we're getting sued now, which hopefully...
I believe they are. Let me just quickly check.
Go for it. And then... So, Last of Us Left Behind was some downloadable content for the first game, which was released in 2014. And then The Last of Us Part 2 came out in 2020, which is quite a big gap, actually. 7 years between the first game and the second game, Part 2. And you know what? I haven't played the second one, but the reviews, anyone who's played it says it's amazing. These are like blockbuster games.
Yeah, AAA, full-on, expensive, putting in all the money in to get the perfect voice acting, motion capture stuff. And just on the point, you probably remember it because it's like they make Uncharted.
Uncharted.
Yes, and also like the original people to do like Crash Bandicoot as well. So it's like a complete different thing. Oh, we're gonna make some, and also like Jack and Daxter. So they've gone from like Crash Bandicoot, Jack and Daxter to the Uncharted to then straight on Last of Us.
The most emotionally, I mean, was Crash Bandicoot particularly emotionally challenging to play? But yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool, and still they've re-released the first Last of Us on PlayStation 5 and Windows in September 2022, which coincided with the TV show, which I just think's brilliant marketing moves. And an untitled multiplayer game is currently in development, so I'd be keen to see how that goes. You've played both games?
I've played the first one, and I've seen Jeffrey play the second game, and I would say that they are some of the best games actually I've played and seen I would say it's one of probably the best games of the last decade.
What makes you say that in summary?
I think story, the acting, the voice acting, the scenery, like the tense moments are actually like tense. You know, when you have those games where you're like, oh, they try and make it seem like tense within the story. Be like, it's not really that tense. I know they're going to be okay. But no, it was like, this could happen. This person could die. You don't know if the main character is going to die at any point in time during this game, or even Ellie in any point in time in this game. You don't know how this story will then continue. And I think I prefer that, because then everyone's like, oh, we've got a main character we're playing as. He'll definitely make it to the end of the game. And then people are like playing it. You're like, maybe he won't. Maybe he'll switch characters into somebody else. And I think I actually prefer that, because then it's better off for the story than to think that all this things he's going through, being held captive or all being shot at, or he's almost died here. Oh no, he's going to make it to the end of the game. It's not as if they're just going to not have him at the end of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And we did have a chat earlier about spoilers, and as a spoiler warning, we don't hold back. We already said, but we'll let that one come out naturally. I mean, I feel like we've hinted at it, but again, like a Game of Thrones sort of aesthetic, that main characters just die off, and just looking at the TV show without the spoilers of what will happen in the second season or what's happened in Last of Us Part 2. Many people die. Like, the sort of format is similar to the Mandalorian, and each episode they kind of meet someone new, hear some story about them, have some emotional touch them, and then they just die. Like Sam and his brother in the Kansas City episode.
That was heart-wrenching.
Yeah, me and a flatmate were watching it. We were actually crying at the end of that episode.
That was sad.
Especially after seeing like the infected and the what do you call the big one? The bloaters,
yeah.
Yeah, that was like quite horrific, because just seeing them all flood out like a swarm, like they kind of trickled. So you see the infected a lot at first, but then they stop seeing them. You know, episode 3, you just see one infected. Episode 4, I don't think you see any at all. Episode 5, can't remember if that's the one where they all burst out, or you don't see them at all. You just see that hole slowly appearing in the Kansas City quarantine zone. But then after their outbreak in Kansas City, you don't really see much of them. Yeah. Again, after that, like glimpses. So they kind of trickle and spoon feed you. Maybe because it's very expensive, the production design.
And also, I think like if you show them too much, people will then get used to them.
Yeah, and it's not scary anymore. Yeah. It's like in horror movies. Once you finally see what the monster or whatever the evil spirit is, like once you hear the explanation or see what it looks like, it's just not scary anymore. Yeah. It's just,
and that is like why people love Jaws so much, is that partly this is just the funny thing about Jaws is that they hadn't finished the shark until almost the end of the filming. So that's why you rarely ever see it in the film. But then Steven Spielberg did it in such a way that you were so scared and the fans were so scared of the shark, but never saw it until the very end.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think, to your point, like if you see like the whether it's a monster or the villain too many times, and you then start to then feel like, oh, I think the mystery is what scares people as well. The mystery behind it. Like, for example, if you're watching The Ring and you see like someone just disappear, or you hear a noise, that scares you more than actually fully seeing the actual monster itself.
That's a good point. It's like when you're in your house and you're in your bed, it's nighttime and you hear sound.
Yes.
It's the thought of what it could be.
Yes.
When you actually go look, it's a cat or you just don't see anything, or the thought of something scary, the threat of it is what's scary. Like with Jaws, you don't actually see it, and that's what's better.
And then he always uses the soundtrack, which I think the Last of Us does really well. Is that you always have to, great writers and great directors use the music to basically elevate the story. And we did mention when we're talking like House of the Dragon, how the music elevates the story. It takes on the mood of certain scenes. And I think that's what
Star Wars as well.
Which is, and I think the fact that HBO are making like The Last of Us, and they are the same studio who did the Game of Thrones, and you've also got 2 Game of Thrones actors in the playing the 2 main characters. I think it's
Bella Ramsey. I can't remember. Bella
Ramsey, and it is the actress's name. And she's a Mormon.
Something Mormon. I can't.
And I think it's clever because then the actors, you've worked with them before, and I think also with home box office, I think the whole thing about HBO is that they then make a TV series as big as a film and give it like a film budget. That's why like Game of Thrones cost like millions. Probably, I think the whole series, like you need TV shows like that. And I'm glad they gave it to someone who could actually spend the money. And because imagine if it was like it was given to like, no offense BBC, but if it was given to like the BBC to just do, or a small studio to just do by themselves, if you mess up the CGI, like of the clickers or the bloaters, it then kind of like messes up how you feel about them.
Yeah, it's true. There's little things, but like for example, Rings of Power, $700 million, which is by far the most expensive TV show ever made in history. And it was okay. It wasn't good. It wasn't terrible. I'll say that, but it was just okay for $700 million. That's not value for money.
Yeah.
Just to continue on our sort of progress through the games, and then we'll talk about sort of some more aspects about the TV show. So some recognition for the video game. It's won several Game of the Year awards. Part 2, The Last of Us Part 2, which was released in 2020, has won over 320 Game of the Year awards, varying from different categories, which is insane.
It is.
It's sold over 37 million games worldwide, which I don't know if that is a lot, but
it is a lot.
How does that compare to like Call of Duty and stuff? I'm not really sure.
I think the issue with like games like this is that because it's it's a story-driven game, and also because of the violence, it will kind of like limit it. But that is still a lot. If you even think of like it as like a medium, and like we did mention like on previous episodes that video games have like selling a single unit like for video games is now the it. If you think about it,
it's a lot.
If you're a musician, if you get like 3 million album sales, that's amazing because you've gone 3 times platinum. But if you go 37, that is like the best musician of all time type level.
AC/DC of video games. Just as a comparison, Call of Duty Call of Duty Black Ops, which was released in 2010, the best-selling Call of Duty game, only 31 million copies. I mean, that's still a lot. I say only, but The Last of Us has 37 million. I think that's for the second video game. So that is a hell of a lot. Yeah, they've done well. Like, this is one of the best games in our lifetime, and amazing. And I can't wait to see what this untitled multiplayer game, which is currently in development, will be like. In terms of the TV show, the first episode had 4.7 million viewers, which is pretty good. By episode 6, it was roughly about 35 million viewers. So it's quite a lot. I can't remember how that compares to like Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, but
I know just because like I've looked like numbers in the past, but 35 million is amazing. Because I think what people also need to realize is that it doesn't count like streaming numbers for those who are streaming it on, like in the UK, I think it's Now TV, or on Sky, you'd be streaming it. Or in America, you'll be either streaming on like HBO Max, or you'll be watching it on the actual channel. So it's like 35 million people watching a single show is amazing, like for just on television. But just think about how many people have watched it like globally through streaming services.
Yeah, or downloaded it illegally.
Yeah.
The ones that haven't been recorded in that number, But, moving swiftly on. So, I've got a figure here. The show's 7th season regularly drew... Sorry, Game of Thrones, the 7th season, regularly drew over 10 million viewers per episode. So this is actually almost 4 times that many.
Yeah.
I don't know if don't take my word for it. There might be shows like that, but this is maybe one of the most watched series of all time, and we've just got to wonder why.
I think it's like the cleverness of it is that you have a very successful video game.
Yeah.
You have like
fan base from that already. Yeah,
that's already been made. You have HBO, which people are like, oh, if it's on HBO, it must be good.
Good stuff, yeah.
Like Broadwalk Empire, they did Peaky Blinders, they did The Sopranos as well.
Oh, yeah.
Game of Thrones, and then also House of the Dragon. So it's like, if it's on HBO, it must be good. And I think also the fact that they picked the perfect time period, like it's not really in the way of anything really, because like The Mandalorian is fully 100% on Disney Plus. So you don't have to compete on television. So people who want to watch The Last of Us can watch it on HBO and then go watch The Mandalorian anytime they want to on Disney Plus. And
Which
I think
is also Pedro Pascal basically doing the same thing.
Yeah. Just amazing getting paid millions to do the same thing on 2 shows.
He is the richest, hottest dad in the universe right now.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people say.
And I think that really helps. Like there aren't like for example, we've mentioned The Boys. The Boys haven't released anything out or haven't had a show coming out. Like Rings of Power isn't out. You haven't got like anything from Game of Thrones. Like you've got one thing. You don't have like a big Star Wars TV show. Well, you've got The Mandalorian, but as you said, it's 100% on streaming. You don't have a big Star Wars film.
Yeah.
There isn't like a major film that's come out that can take people's attention away from it. It's after, and it's also clever. It's just after it started during the American football season and then finished after the American football season. So it's like
gets that advertising.
So you get the advertising, and 2, you also get like people have more things that they free time to watch stuff.
But do you think also that we've just been through a pandemic? Do you think that has a
100%,
popularity? I wonder just even on like an emotional level, because we've been through a pandemic, the emotional side of The Last of Us appeals just that bit more. I mean, obviously COVID and the Cordyceps infection in The Last of Us are by far not the same thing.
Yeah.
But just that feeling of what are we going through? Just some of the feelings I had during the first lockdown, like, oh my God, the world hasn't been like this ever. Like no one knows what's going on. How bad could this get?
Yeah.
And then seeing the first episode of The Last of Us, just seeing like how things slowly start to outbreak in that. Just kind of, I think, triggered a few feelings in me. I mean, pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it is pretty crazy. And I think,
go ahead.
And I think it also gets to people because like they understand it more. I think the audience is like science knowledge has increased because many people have but you do have all the fake news on the internet concerning like all these different things concerning vaccines and all that other thing.
Yeah.
But I think people are more likely to like listen and also to like watch more things scientific because people have had to do research concerning like COVID, and they've had like research about COVID and how it works and viral infections go through like on television. So you actually have like a basis of knowledge. And also I think with COVID as well, I think also not just with COVID, I think it's a TV show which isn't really that much science fiction, that much fantasy as well. And I think people might be having like a sci-fi fantasy overload. So having something which is science fiction because of the disease and the fungi, but it's still more like human element to it.
Yeah, especially with the emotional stories of it. Like, some of the best episodes didn't even have infected in. Like, episode 3 with Bill and Frank.
Yes.
Whoa. Like, you see, there's infected in it for like 1 minute, and it's just him quite comically getting shot by like a trap. Yeah, and that emotional grip. It's the emotional stories that are so good. If you took out the infected, that episode by itself still could be pretty like hit the bar quite well.
And I think even to your point, if you remove the infected completely and it's just the virus that's taking people out, I think it's still a very, very good TV show because the writers and the director have focused on individual human stories, and that the backdrop is the fungi and also the events of the apocalypse. So it's like the apocalypse isn't the thing at the front; it's the setting, and everything is happening within that setting.
Yeah, it's true. It's the focus is on the setting. It's not just like the focus is on the zombies and the infected. It's the emotional side of it. Kind of like The Walking Dead, I think, picks up on that quite well.
Yeah.
Like the emotional side, although zombies are very much more present in it, I feel, compared to maybe I'm talking about my ass. It's been a while since I watched The Walking Dead.
No, but you're right.
Finally wrapping up, apparently, from what I've heard.
Yeah, it is. And like, you did have like what was the spin-off TV series? Fear the Walking Dead, I think. Yeah. And like, because people die and then become zombies, I think it's more prevalent because like it's like no matter what you do, there will always be zombies. So therefore you'd have to like either burn the body, drop it in like water, or then just have to leave and run away. So you have to, and I think that's the element of it, is that you can't run and hide from it. It's always going to be there. Like if someone is bleeding out on the floor, do you just cut off their head within The Walking Dead or put a bullet in their head, because they could turn into a zombie if they actually die? And I think that's like the whole point of the series is like, you can't run and hide from them because it's inevitable.
They'll get you.
Yeah.
Even though they're slower, aren't they?
Yeah,
but
they are.
Still, that's crazy sound. I remember the prosthetics and design and that being quite good. Anyway, coming back to The Last of Us.
Yes.
So another thing I think that hits the bar with the post-COVID society is, well, the show starts, apart from the flashback in the beginning to 1963, the show starts off in 2003, and when it skips, with the outbreak, when it skips to 20 years later, what year is it?
2023.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if they put that in the last minute when they finished production. Like, okay, it's 2023, but that hit the bar pretty well. We're living in this, I almost said post-COVID society, but I know plenty of people have got COVID right now. But I just think that timing is pretty apt as 2023, even though it's probably quite easy for them to put in. I thought that was done quite well. One thing I did notice that was interesting about... So one thing that I love about The Last of Us is I've really appealed to the fan base from the games. Like the fan base, for once, it's not toxic fan base like Rings of Power,
yes,
with
Star Wars with the prequel, not the prequel, the sequels that have come out. Yeah.
I was starting to lose hope that there's just no way to appeal to a fan base. They always turn toxic when you like try and do a prequel or like a remake, but they're done pretty good with this. Like for example, here's some trivia: the clickers, are they?
Clickers,
yeah. Most of them are played by fans of the video game who just like loved the game so much they actually knew how to like kind of walk and act like the clickers. So they just put them in like expensive prosthetics, and I guess it was free labor for the production company who probably spent a lot of money on this. So pretty cool that. What do you think of because you've played the video game, in terms of like similarities between the two? Anything notable? Any differences or any similarities you want to pick out?
I would say that the way they've done it is really well, and I would say that there are many like similarities between both of them. I think like the ages, especially because the actress who's playing Ellie is older, so that's like the main difference as well. And also, I think at first when they picked like the actress to play her, people were like, oh no, she looks nothing like Ellie. How can you put somebody? And I was like, do they have to actually look exactly like the character? I know that Pascal looks a bit like the main character, Joel. If you look at them side by side, he does partly look like him, but you don't have to have someone they don't have to look exactly alike. But I think one of the things that I really did enjoy is that it did bring new elements which weren't really that much in the game that actually really help. And I think because if you then take, it's like from anything, if you take from a book series or you take from from a TV series, turn it into a film, or a film into a TV series, or try and do a prequel, you don't want to take too much from it. You want to still wow people and still be like, oh,
bring something new
to that fans can be like, oh my days, yeah, I saw this in the game, but they've added this and that to therefore make it more of like experience and like more of like plot setting as well, because like there's certain things like you don't have to have in a video game that you have to have in a TV series. Like you need way more characters in like a TV series than in a video game, and you also have to have some kind of like background for these characters. And I think that's what The Last of Us does really well. That they
like Frank and Bill, for example. Like I remember hearing that you don't meet Bill, was it Frank, in the video? He's already dead by that point in it. Sorry, spoilers. But he's already dead by that point in the video game. So this is actually gives some sort of like closure, I guess.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also one thing I do like about the TV series is like, at first, spoilers here, like Joel is like, oh, I'm on a mission to do the right thing. But then the question you then later on in the series is like, which one is the right thing?
What is the right thing? Yeah.
Is it sacrificing Ellie to then save the world?
Oh my God.
Or is it making sure that she survives and then just continue moving from one place to another just to keep safe, basically?
I love that. I love it that there's no easy right answer, because that reflects a lot of life. Like it's like when we're talking about Game of Thrones or House of Dragons, like everything's shades of grey. Bad guys aren't necessarily fully bad guys. They've just ended up in those circumstances, or they're trying to protect their family. And I love Joel's character, and especially in that final episode, because and throughout the series he mentions to Ellie, like Ellie actually asked him, Joel, how did you know how those men that ambushed us today, how did you know how to do that they were doing that? How did you know? Did you do that in the past? Were you a bad man? He like actually admits like what him and his brother got up to, and you know, in that final episode when he finds out what they're gonna do to Ellie, he's like, no, I must save Ellie. He's brutal in his methods. Like a guy tries to surrender,
and he just shoots him straight away.
He executes him. Another guy is lying wounded on the floor, and he just comes up to him and knifes him just so he can use his gun and save bullets.
And it's like the weird thing is like, for fans, it's like you are rooting that he doesn't die, but then you're like, how can I root for him if he's just killing people who see that Ellie is... And I think that's the clever thing, is that you can see from both sides and you can't really pick one side or the other. Like, I was even speaking, before coming to record the episode, I was speaking to my sister and I was like, what would you do in this situation? And she's like, I actually don't know what I would do. Like she would say, I would ask the child if they're prepared to like sacrifice to save the world, and and I was like, yeah, but if they said no, it's like I don't know. It's like
tough luck, kids.
It's like how can you then tell a child, oh sorry, you've got to die to save the rest of the world? And it's like, and then sometimes you then start thinking to yourself that thank goodness I'm never put in those kind of like situations in real life. Yeah, like having to then pick between like a child and like humanity, yeah.
But then you're not even sure, because I was going to say, like, what would you do in that situation? But to be honest, I would probably take the risk and say, you know what, cut her brain up. Like, it could work, it could not work. But then again, I'm not in Joel's shoes. Like, he literally lost the daughter at the beginning, and he obviously, he's like, he starts a connection with Ellie where he sees her as a daughter, and she, I guess, kind of looks up to him as a father because she's an orphan. And you know what? It's interesting. Ellie's character progression, because I hated Ellie at first. I barely played the video game, so I didn't get to know her that well, but I hated her at first. I thought she was a rude, loudmouth little but she really does grow on you, you know? She's very feisty for a kid, kind of like the character she played in Game of Thrones, Bella Ramsey. But yeah, you really do. She's like got this way of like sort of bringing a laugh to that book of bad puns.
Yes, yeah.
And Joel, who's quite frankly quite a cold, hardcore, out of laughs man who's like burning bodies and stuff
Yeah,
at the
yeah, yeah.
start and
Yeah.
lost his daughter. I guess she brings some life back into him, and that's really sweet, you know. And you get so committed and drawn into their relationship. It is like emotional, man. Very emotional.
Yeah, and I think if you really look at it, it's like, especially later on in the season, to your point, like the infected aren't that prevalent. It's basically the choices that they make. And I think also people need to realize, like fans saying, "Oh, he should have just allowed Ellie to be cut up to save the world." But then you're like, think of it in his shoes.
Yeah.
Like, how are you 100% sure that this is actually going to work? And how will you feel? How would Joel feel if she does die and they're like, "Oh, it didn't work"?
Yeah, exactly.
And then like even like the reverse, like what was going through his mind, like if he then escapes, like we know that Ellie's not just going to die all of a sudden, but in his mind, based in that universe, if he then leaves with her and then she just dies like 15 minutes later after leaving that building, it's like,
I'm a ching you, fam.
No, wrong button.
it's like, and that's the thing had to go through his mind, is like, should I focus on trying to save humanity, which is a percentage that I don't know, or trying to save Ellie and keep her alive, which I'm not sure I can do that either. And it's like, that is a huge decision to just like full on make. And then he decides, but then you're not even sure as like the audience, did he pick the right choice?
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll ever know, but I guess that's not the point. It's always just what if. It's like The Witcher, you know, like was it a quote from The Witcher? If I have to choose between two evils, the lesser, the greater, I'd rather not choose because I'm still choosing evil. And, you know, there's no right or wrong decision. And that is what I really loved about the ending of the show, just Joel's brutality of it. And like he kills Marlene, who, just to point out, Marlene in the TV show is played by Marlene, the voice actor in the video game. She's called Mal Dandridge, great name. But and some cool other like trivia as well. So you know, so many scenes in a TV show are actually shot in the same sort of camera angle you'd play in the game.
Yes,
so like the car scene in the beginning when they're driving, the outbreak's happening, they're driving with the brother, the daughter, and Joel, and the angles in it are very much a mirror of what's in the game. There's some other scenes, like there's a pornography scene that came out wrong. Ellie picks up a dirty porno mag. She's looking, like, opens up in the back car. Word for word, see, like, camera angle for camera angle is the same in the video game. Like, and I think this is why the fan base loved it, because not only were they doing some stuff in exactly the right way, in exactly the same way as in the video game, but they're also adding new stuff as well.
Yeah.
You know, they're appealing to both things without making it all new and fans go, "Oh, it's not the same," and then they stuck too strictly. I don't know.
Yeah, and they really knew how to work on like the nostalgia angle, like.
Oh yeah, the new soundtrack is cool. Yeah.
And I think like using those camera angles from the game, they really were like, okay, we know that a lot of the people who are going to watch it will watch it for the first time, but we still have a portion of the audience who have played the games. And because like it came out like on PlayStation 3, then PlayStation 4, and then PlayStation 5. So you've got like probably like 2 generations of people who've played the game.
Yeah.
We will do things specially for them that they'll go, "Oh my days, this is amazing." And I think that's another key thing that The Last of Us had, was that it still built on the nostalgia that fans had playing the video game. And the one thing I do hope is that they continue that for the next season, and also as the TV series continues.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'd be keen to see what season 2 has in store. An interesting difference I noticed actually between the video game, because I did play a bit of the video game, and the TV shows. So how the virus spreads, not necessarily how it first started, but more how it spreads. In the game, it's through airborne spores, because you know when you go into a condemned building, it's full of Cordyceps spores, so you have to put on a mask and stay over. Whilst in the TV show, that's not the case. So although it does spread through spores, and it's not clear how they're spread, I think maybe through hospitals or through food, is what they mentioned. Like, but it's not airborne. Like, you do not get it from airborne. You get it from being bitten or scratched. And tendrils, as was quoted. And that's interesting. I wonder why they went for that. I
think it might just be easier. Like, also, for a TV series, you want to see the actors' faces as much as possible.
Yeah,
I think that's the main thing. Like, you can't have like two scenes where they're in a building like for maybe 30 minutes having like a gas mask on their face and also the sound quality as well would be kind of hard to do. Yeah, muffled. So I think that could possibly be the reason.
It could be, because one thing about the Mandalorians, again, Pedro Pascal, he's wearing a helmet most of the time, and he's been praised on his voice acting, despite
having a helmet. Yes,
don't actually do those, which I kind of struggle with a little bit with some of the other actors, and when they wear helmets as the other Mandalorians, I find that a bit hard to get around. But I could see why maybe they avoided the airborne spores for the gas mask thing. That was interesting. Some other differences as such, I guess in the game, you don't actually. Do you ever find out where the virus, the fungus, came from? Like how it spread? Because in this, it says it's come. They say it came from Indonesia or Malaysia.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that they actually say in the game where it comes from. Yeah.
Yeah, because I do like in the first few episodes, you had the intro scenes before not the credits. So you have the intro cinematic, but before that, you have like just a random bit of story that doesn't go with what's currently going on. So they show Ellie's mum in the final episode, I think, or the episode before that, which Ellie's mum, played by Ashley Johnson, also voiced Ellie in the video game, which was cool. Another cool reference. Fans love it. Yeah, and then there's a scene where it's in Indonesia. They basically talk about where the cordyceps came from roughly. Someone had been working somewhere and it spread, and they bring in like a mycologist to talk about it, and they're like, the army's like, we don't know what to do. Like, people are missing after being bitten. What do you think we should do? And she just breaks down and says, bomb everything. I need to be with my family. Just where they've been, bomb it. And it's crazy, the extremity of that. And you kind of see why Fedra, the post-apocalyptic US government, is as oppressive as they come across, because I kind of felt a bit of empathy for them, because it's like in those sort of times when there's a big outbreak and stuff, thinking about what happened in COVID, the government takes on this greater evil role, telling us what to do and stuff for our own good, although Fedra is quite an extreme example. It's not like our government was going around shooting people.
But I think for them, it's like it is basically an extreme case. And also, I think we don't know the picture of the rest of the world.
Yeah, I'd love to see what happened in Europe, actually.
And I think for example, in places like Australia, which is basically a huge island in the middle of nowhere, if you really think about it, has the virus gone there? Or have they basically done the same thing, and any boat that comes in, just drop bombs on it and blow it up? And basically say anything that comes within our seas or airspace, just blow it up.
Yeah, and what was said, a country just take that step. I can't remember who it was, but one country, Cuba,
yes,
they're very good at just basically saying no one's allowed in, no one's allowed out.
And I think potentially because you don't know the rest of the situation within the United States, they might have to be hardline just because they know how bad the situation is, and they could be the last glimmer of hope that the United States has. And I think the issue that you have with a state of anarchy, is that systems break down, and when system breaks down, everyone then thinks for themselves,
which goes on in this.
And I think that's the main. Then that's the sad thing is when a country goes into a state of emergency, the main reason for doing it is to make sure that systems then don't break down, because then if people start thinking on an individual level, they will then start thinking, then why can't I just take from this person? I'm stronger than they are.
I was doing.
I could take from this person. I have a gun with weapons. I have guns with bullets. I could take from this person, and they can do nothing about it. And then that's when society breaks down and then people start taking from each other. And I think maybe they saw like things breaking down and were like, you know what, we need to have a hard line on it. Like if you see like where disasters are taking place, you see like signs of like looters will be shot.
Yeah.
And then
hard line.
I was like, that's harsh. But then they're like, no, you also need to remember that some people are going to use this opportunity to basically abuse, which you see in The Last of Us, and also to manipulate other people and using the destabilization of the system to do so. So
that's true. That's very true. But likewise, people in government and
will also do the same thing.
Advantage.
Yes.
I think either way, human beings take advantage of those situations. And we are also a virus as well. We're the worst virus in the world.
Yeah, if you remember the Matrix, what Mr. Smith says. Yeah. 100%. 100%.
That is such a good quote. I love that quote.
Yeah, and a virus that can survive anywhere on this planet.
Yeah, exactly. We are the worst virus. We conquer, we dominate.
Use up all the resources in the area, then go somewhere else.
Yeah. And I think there was a sort of a key scene as well in the first episode when Joel is driving, when the outbreak's starting down, Joel's there in the car with his brother and Ellie. They literally left the neighbor, like, what the hell's going on? They're driving along and there's like a family along the freeway who's clearly broken down, and like Joel's brother slows down to have him, but Joel's like, just drive on. And I was thinking, I was like, you know what? I would do the same in that situation. Because in that, when order breaks down, when there's anarchy, you feel like there's chaos. It is really every man for himself.
Yeah.
What are their intentions? Are they honest? Or do we have 100%. Enough supplies for them?
Yeah. And you see it with all these apocalyptic shows. Like, are they pretending that they've broken down so they can rob us? Or are they actually broken down, but they also want to rob our car? Or if we take them with us, will we then end up dying or being infected? And that's the and that is the thing. Like when you have an apocalyptic event, it's like everything breaks down, and it's like I need to survive, and I will do whatever it takes for mine and my own to survive.
Exactly. Otherwise it kind of becomes like a survival of the fittest situation. I don't mean to get social Darwinist there, but things like that can really go downhill. Okay, random question then. If you were in a zombie outbreak, or let's pretend it's the outbreak like in The Last of Us, where would you hold up? What would be your hideout?
Globally or just based in London?
Wherever comes to mind. I was thinking more of like, what building would you go? How would you where would you hold up? Would you hold up in a community? But you could say globally. Whatever comes to mind. For
me, I would say it'd have to be... I would say most likely I would go to the Polynesian. So basically the islands like Samoa, Kiribati, because one, they're so secluded away from each other, but you can still travel from one island to another in a boat. And also the fact the weather's perfect all year round. You don't have to prepare for winter at all.
Yeah.
They do suffer from like tsunamis and earthquakes, but you just have to keep an eye out for that. But I think it would have to be somewhere secluded and also somewhere winter doesn't set in, because I think we forget, like especially being this far north, or if you're far south, is that with electricity, our lives have been made better. But think about like what London would be like without millions of human beings creating heat to keep keeping London to a degree of heat. And if there was no electricity, how bad it would be. And also like imagine like how bad it would be in winter when the sun comes up for like 6-7 hours, and then you being scared, like I have to go out and get something to eat and it's dark outside. Should I just stay in here?
Yeah, you're already depressed as it is.
And I think,
wow, great, great, just what you need.
If I was in London though, I would say the best place to potentially be is
dead.
I would say potentially Tower of London.
Why? Because it's like a fortification.
Yeah, and I think also what they could try and do, if they saw it coming, because that Tower 100 used to have a moat.
Yeah.
They could just get the Thames to flood the moat around it, and then that's what I would probably be.
Right, and then declare yourself as some marauder overlords, Lord Joshua. I mean, that's a fair point. I quite like your point about the going to secluded islands and Polynesia because of the weather and stuff. The only thing I'd be skeptical about that is how much do those islands rely on imports?
That is
and
true.
Stuff and food. Like, I mean, I'm sure they have their own crops and stuff that could grow there, but your diet definitely would not be what it was.
Yeah.
But mind you,
yeah.
with any of our diets in a post-apocalyptic situation, it's not like Burger King will be open in the zombie apocalypse. So, fair point. You might have to get used to eating other stuff. And a thing about, like, suppose living in London during a zombie apocalypse is the population density is too high. Zombies would get to you.
It is.
Like, getting access to food as well. All shops would be looted and stuff in the first few days when people think stuff has gone to absolute chaos.
And I think the issue that you also have with London is that you can circumvent the river. Like if the issue with London is like London, if you go north enough, you can circumvent like the River Thames. But I think the major issue you would have is that you've got.
Mean that you can circumvent? You could just go all the way.
So the way that the River Thames comes down and goes through London like that.
Yeah.
So then, if you then further go that way, you could then go. Basically, the river will then be less and less, and then go across. And I think also similar to like New York, there are way too many bridges. In London, you'd have to literally.
Well, in terms of sealing it off, say there was a quarantine thing.
Because I think with New York would be the best if you knew it was coming, because you've got like Manhattan is an island of itself. So if there were no like infected within Manhattan, destroy all the bridges, flood all the tube stations.
Man, you are Federer.
I've played way too many like apocalyptic video games or seen TV shows. It's like you need to be on an island, and basically New York is probably one of the best metropolises for it, because literally you've got Staten Island, you've got Long Island within the United States with New York. You've got Manhattan Island as well. So literally, if you saw it coming, you could literally cut off and basically say, no, we're fine. No one leave this island, and then flood.
But I guess that makes sense if you can control the outbreak from an early stage.
Yes.
But the issue is such one of the most densely populated places in the world. How quickly that would spread like wildfire in the first few days. Would you even have time to close bridges? Would you even be able to have time to
Which
respond?
is true.
Like Model United Nations at school, I've always wanted to set up like a model emergency nations thing. Like, pretend you are a government responding to a zombie outbreak. How would you respond to it? Like, it'd be kind of interesting.
That would be interesting, and I think the size of America would work against it, apart from the fact that it does have a desert like slap bang in the middle of it. Yeah. And they've got mountains as well. So I think what helps, which you kind of see like in the TV series, is like if you start to head from like New York, you further go west, then you have, I've forgotten what the mountains are called, but like you have the mountain range that also which is near like where Denver is, that kind of like cuts off the whole west coast. The Rockies, the whole west coast of America from the rest. And like you have a desert in between. And like I think they said like Death Valley is in that region. Yeah. So if you could like survive in the desert, then you like if you were used to surviving there, no one else would be there. And if any of the infected got there, they'd eventually die of thirst.
Well, yeah, and in World War Z, for example, one way people survived was going up into mountain ranges. Because of the cold weather, zombies would just freeze. Yeah. When they are like, they wouldn't die already undead, but they'd be frozen and they'd just come along and put a bullet in their head or just stab them. Yeah. So potentially, depending on what like the outbreak's like and stuff, climate and geography could actually really help.
100%. Like they would freeze, and I don't think, especially the fungi would probably, they would be a lot slower because there'd be less being able to say like receptions through the brain, and the nervous system will start to slow down. And also the fact that if it's in like a desert, you then have the advantage that because they're still alive, and also the fungi itself will dehydrate.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know how they'd respond to that, because I guess it's too hot. Because one of the reasons why everyone's so okay with cordyceps, despite some anxieties, is it needs, so like the human body temperature is, I think, like something like 20 degrees too high for cordyceps to function in. So it's a long way off. But if it, say, a new strain of cordyceps was developed that adapted to the rising temperatures of climate change, although I don't know how it could adapt to 20 degrees.
It's higher,
Yeah, that's just way too high for
And I think also another issue for it is that because like insects don't have a skeleton, they have like a shell, but then like how would it then, because what basically it grows out of their head, like right in the middle of their head, like how would it would have to be extremely powerful to like get through the skull? Or would it just come out of the person's nose or the person's mouth?
That's a nice thought. Tell you what, for Halloween, I'm definitely going to go for like a fungus themed thing. It's too disgusting for me not to do it.
And just, I think the last place, based on like locations, I recently watched like on Disney Plus, like Europe from Above. I might go to Lapland.
Why? Because it's so cold.
One, it's so cold. Two, there's like, I think like tens of thousands of like reindeer up there.
So you could hide
So you'd hide up there. You've got a food source.
Santa Claus is from there as well, apparently.
You can get all the excess Christmas presents that no one else is taking.
What if Santa Claus is infected though? You see him come down the chimney and you've got a gun. I'd shoot Santa.
And you'd be then a super spreader basically every Christmas.
Damn it, Santa!
And then Fed were planning on how to take out Father Christmas.
Or surface air missile.
Yes.
That'd be great. Santa Claus is super spreader. Oh, I hope someone was joking around about that during COVID times. That must have been a good one. Yeah, I mean, I love those sort of theoretical scenarios. Like, what would you do in a zombie apocalypse? Personally, I would choose, say if it was London, I think I would try and lock myself up in a food warehouse somewhere. Like, not necessarily a supermarket, because you'll get looters and stuff come along and there'll be arguments and you probably have to fight with them and stand your ground. But at least the food warehouse is less known about to people, and there might be just stockpiles of beans, like literally way more than a supermarket.
Yeah, beans and soup as well.
Yeah.
And then you've also got like evaporated tins of milk, so you can at least have some form of diet, like peas and sweet corn. And like those things could...
But imagine this is literally you've just got like you just the one warehouse has just got sweet corn. It's just like your diet is just pure corn.
Yes, yeah.
You need to find a toilet paper factory very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. And like even to your point, like I'm surprised they haven't, maybe they might feature it later on in the TV series, like the old nuclear bunkers. Like how many times do you think a politician within that universe is like, all right, nuclear bunker, here we come. Just heading straight down there. And like, another place you could try and hide is potentially the underground. Especially if you could get to some of the deepest parts that are kind of like locked off. Like, you know, when you take the train that sometimes it stops in the tunnel and there's like, it opens out and you see like a door where people like maintenance look after. Like imagine like if you were working on the train, you could literally like stay there, but the only issue would be like finding food.
Yeah, finding food, lack of vitamin D would get you eventually. Yeah. Also, you need to like do stuff to keep you busy. You would go literally insane.
Mad,
You turn against your own community just because your mental health would go down.
Or even like if you went down further. So like, I think someone was on the Joe Rogan show. I might be getting this wrong, and he said that you know how Americans can be. Oh, we're going to go to London and we're going to go onto the tube. So basically, went on the tube line.
Yeah.
At night, and we're just basically excavating and going lower and lower and lower and lower and lower until like they got to a place where there was a tunnel and like there was a camera that turned and looked at them. So I think they might have found maybe like an abandoned old like tube line which has been shut off for years, which would be a perfect place to hide. But you just have
quite a lot of them. And my brother's in the police. There's so many stations that are no longer used, and like you would go and work in some of the like British Transport Police offices there, and he'd literally be walking through a station that looks like it's from like the 50s and stuff. Because there's no chance of them reopening it anytime soon. They might sometimes, but it's spooky though. I mean,
because like if the infected get there, it's literally like an ant hive network for them to get everywhere in London.
Well, exactly. And like think of like in Paris, you know how it's built on the catacombs, which is literally the skeletons and skulls of everyone that was killed in the French Revolution. Yeah, spooky saying or what? And there's so many spooky videos of stuff like that. We need to have like a spooky city. Episode like that. We could.
But also, do these fungi need sunlight? That's the thing.
What, photosynthesis?
Yeah. Do they need photosynthesis to survive, or can they take nutrients from the body that their host?
Not based on like I'm no mycologist, but fungi, a lot of their networks run underground. Like what you see, the thing you see that comes out is often the mushroom is just one part of it.
Okay.
The mushroom isn't the word for it though. I can't remember what you call it, but the main part of fungus is the network that's underground. Like it connects, it speaks to each other, it communicates underground. Much like how the fungus does it in that, it calls over other infected and it finds humans. And I would really recommend people watching a documentary called Fantastic Fungi, because don't let fungus are so good for us. They help maintain the natural order. They're good for our brains. They digest and help things biodegrade, because otherwise the world would be littered with
dead bodies of
stuff. We need it. And there's a lot that can be said about fungus and mushrooms that definitely would challenge the stereotype that I think The Last of Us is great, because I don't want them to become like sharks, like
people are like, oh my days, although the fact that after Jaws came out, like seaside resorts lost millions because people were so scared of sharks.
Oh my God. It's like,
and the fact that sharks only kill like 4 people a year, and like someone was, I think it was like on Discovery Channel, that they were just talking like animals that kill, like a hippo kills like 4,000 people a year.
Most dangerous animal in Africa.
Yeah. And like they said, crocodiles is like maybe, I think it ranges based on like, it can be from 300 up to potentially 900 people a year.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, you're scared of a shark, which only kills around about 4 people a year and has to stay in warm water. Like you can't get sharks in the UK unless it's summer and then the seasons change. But like, there's so many more things you should be afraid of than of sharks that kill only 4 people a year.
Yeah, exactly. There's a statistic: more people get crushed by vending machines falling
or struck by lightning and die than get attacked by sharks.
I had a colleague, that vending machine fact. My colleague had such a great, smart, funny spin on that. He's like, but what are you more likely to be around? A vending machine because you work in an office, or a shark? I'm not a surfer, so of course more people, the statistics would be skewed, because you're more likely to be around a vending machine than a shark. So
it's like when people say with like planes, oh, you shouldn't be afraid of flying. The most dangerous part of your journey was getting to the airport. Yeah, because there's millions of people on the road.
Millions of cars.
And like one of the funny things is like, oh, you're more likely to be struck by lightning than to be in a plane crash. But then I think a plane was struck by lightning. So then the guy was like, so booyah, there, right there. But thankfully they landed the plane and everyone was fine.
Oh, wow.
And I think like planes themselves, because they're made out of aluminium, so that they can actually like absorb the lightning. I think, because I was watching like, I think it was on National Geographic, where they basically said that planes are made of aluminium and they have to be lightning proof.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
They must, I guess they've taken that into account. Still like that, I love that figure. Like, that's like a joke in the making, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And imagine if the plane crashes into the sea and then there's sharks. It's like, so what do you want me to do here?
And there's vending machines on the plane. Like, as the plane's going down. It's like, what? How unlucky do you have to be?
Yes.
The guy who he was caught in Hiroshima during the atomic bombing. Luckily, he missed and survived it. Then he went to Nagasaki afterwards and just happened to be there. Still survived that.
Wow.
What are the chances? Wow. Honestly, some people are just so unlucky.
Yeah.
And maybe he was lucky. But anyway, I mean, that is all we have time for today, folks. I've got to admit, The Last of Us is the most emotional thing that's happened so far this year. Ben, we're only on April, so let's keep the good times going.
Yes.
But thank you so much for watching. It's been great having you guys on board, and we've been getting so many views recently.
Yes. Major thank you to the fans, for this one.
Yeah, we can't do it without you folks. We need the notifications. Like, if you want to find out when we've got more content coming out, click the notification button or subscribe to us so you can receive our new videos immediately on YouTube. We're on Spotify as well, the Two Maesters. You can find us on that. Thank you to our Lord, Jeffrey, as usual. And if you'd like to donate to us through our Patreon, you can find a link down below on YouTube. That would be fantastic. And we're having guests on. Like
Yes.
we shot the Boys episode with a dear friend of mine. We've done a Pirates of the Caribbean episode. We've got many more ideas. Like we want to do a Warhammer episode.
Yeah, maybe going into like Star Trek, because there's like, I think there's like 5 Star Trek TV series out right now, and like even there's also Dungeons and Dragons, which neither of us have loads of information on, but there is a film coming out, and also Baldur's Gate, which is based in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, is coming out in August, and could be, some people are saying, like the game of the year. But then so something we can also get involved in around the time that releases. And also, as Morgan always says, if you have a topic that you'd like us to discuss, please put it in the comments.
Yeah, we'd love to have you on, honestly. Get your asses on it. Yeah. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you, guys.
See you soon.